some people don't actually have the full screen on.
Oh, I
On,
completely understand. I mean, you're talking to the guy who's heckling you about 4K, so that I completely understand.
I see. We get started quickly, especially when we have Rich here, who's going to. I think he's essentially just going to make fun of us for the next 2 hours. And
No.
So lack of ability to use PowerShell to do stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So we brought the experts.
We're going to take a very different direction today. So thanks for having me back. I love being here because you two are some of the most comfortable developers that I can talk to, that you guys know enough about me and who I am that we can have really fun conversations. JP and Mr. C, I love what you guys are doing with the community, but I do still think us infrastructure folks who are out there, fighting the good fight in the trenches of the data center need to have a voice and come back sometime. So thank you for giving me that opportunity today.
Well, we're always happy to have you. It's always exciting too, because you always end up showing us something that, at least in my mind, completely blows my mind. Which is part of why I'm wearing this silly hat, is because I'm ready.
Is that the missing hat from my team?
No.
Did you take the missing hat, the architecture hat?
No. This is my B2C hat. Because occasionally I get to the point where I go to do a B2C talk and nobody believes me, so I'm like, all right, I have to take on a larger than life persona in order for this to work. So
it adds authority. That's it. Now,
all right.
Richard,
so,
you said your team has hats. Where's my?
Yeah, we have. So on our team, we have the Architect of the Month, and my team is a global team. So we started with one hard hat in North America, but then some of my colleagues in Europe started winning. So one of my colleagues over there went and bought I think it was a Hogwarts hat that looks very similar to that one. And so for the European team, that became the Architect of the Month hat.
Can I join just for the hat?
You're welcome to. Send me over your resume. I'll see what I can do to get that technical.
Go on your resume. Just go into my GitHub repo. You'll see the useless code I write.
So my boss, when I was on that team, he was a longtime Microsoft dude and longtime hockey player. In fact, I think he still plays hockey. And that was what they would do, is they'd give away this hard hat to whoever was like, player of the game, whatever. And so when I first started here, he brought that to my team, like to our team. And the whole thing was, you get the hard hat and you put stickers on it. Of course, I had a few properly offensive stickers I could put on it. And then take a picture in a compromising position and send it out to the team. And that way you were sort of beholden to them forever. You never wanted to make them angry because they had the compromising photo of you with offensive stickers all over your head. So
Shannon, actually, if you remember her, awarded me Architect of the Month and sent me a corncob hat because she was representing her Midwest heritage. So
I have a corncob hat. Yeah, she sent me one for Christmas a couple of years ago. My kids loved it.
Hey,
all right.
And talking of stickers, by the way, we need to send you some, Mr. Timmering. Just let us know where. Limited edition.
Yeah, GP and I are going to be opening up our own mini UPS business with as much stuff as I think I'm going to have to send over to his house to use his internet connection.
Yep. See.
All right. So this morning, as an infrastructure guy, we talked about, I believe it was Tuesday. It's been a long week. Yep. Where I was recommending, I talked about Azure Policy to help remediate some of the things you guys were looking to do and control from an identity standpoint. Learned you guys didn't know what Azure Policy was, so I jibbed you a little bit. But that brings up an even better conversation is, many of our customers, many of the organizations out there are in your exact shoes where they say, we don't know where to get started. And even today, large organizations that have been trying to, let's say, onboard in the cloud, and this includes MSIT, still it's slow for them. And the reason is, while the cloud offers all these great things, we have the tendency to want to do all or nothing. It just tends to be an IT habit. When we first started off offering our customers advice and guidance on how to onboard to the cloud, we came up with a cloud adoption framework. And it's been called many things. It was called Virtual Data Center 2 years ago. Then it kind of evolved into cloud adoption framework. And then over the last year and a half, we've been taking that feedback. And the feedback was pretty consistent. Hey, Microsoft, thanks for giving us this literally 1,200 pages of information to read about how to onboard to the cloud. We'll get back to you in a couple of years when we can make some decisions. So we took all of that and we said, hey, you know what? We came up now with what's called an enterprise scale landing zone, and it's code-driven, decision-based deployment. And the goal is that through over 1,000 different deployments that we've looked at, the models are pretty consistent. No matter how unique or individual business cases are, the macro architecture is consistent. So we coded it. We made it available through GitHub, through Terraform, and then we're continuing to add to it. What it actually does, and here's the URL, and
can you zoom in a little bit, Richard?
Well, I can absolutely zoom in, but I was going to say, can I paste these just in chat? So I'll paste the chat to this link. That one is my favorite because it has the implementation links, because I don't want to really read the rest of it. But if you look, if you browse on the left-hand side and we go down to architecture, you're going to see this really big eye chart. And it's going to look intimidating, and you're not going to be able to see it. But this is the macro. And if we zoom in, I don't know if that's going to come through or not.
It's coming through.
All right. Yeah. So if we zoom in, this is what we would ultimately want to boil down through Cloud Adoption Framework. We would give you a ton of information and decision trees, and as an organization, hope that you would eventually come to this conclusion. It looks really complicated, but I'm going to show you that it doesn't have to be. I'm going to deploy it in just a test environment on my own, and I'm going to show you that it doesn't have to be a blue-green scenario. If you already have Azure and cloud artifacts, if you're already multi-cloud spread out between AWS, GCP, and Azure, you can still deploy this. You can still get some incredible governance, controls, and policies, and get some base technology, well, things that I consider base technologies that are really what show how Azure can start taking you from a point and clicker like me, which I hold that title forever, to modernizing to infrastructure as code.
So I have a question here.
Yeah, absolutely.
Is this something that only large organizations should be looking at, or can I, as a small company with say 10 people, still running multi-cloud because I want to have that redundancy, can I use that one? I mean, is it cost prohibitive for me as a small company to use it?
No, perfect question. So if I deploy everything on this from day one, it is actually less than $50 a month in total cost. With
what?
Yeah. Now the costs go up as you start consuming the services. So log analytics. Hopefully everyone knows what that is. That's the monitoring platform. If you just create a log analytics workspace, which is what this will do, there's no cost associated with it. You onboard 15 terabytes of logs. That's where your cost is going to come from. So if you're a small business and you can do this model, your costs will grow with your business, but the inherent overhead is not really there. Deploying if I don't deploy any domain controllers in Azure, well, I'm not going to have any VM costs. If I deploy 100 domain controllers in Azure because my business has grown, then sure. This will not doesn't deploy any
infrastructure.
It just creates landing zones. And so this is called enterprise scale landing zones. And the landing zones are what, as developers, you would want to consume to align with your application lifecycle. And for us infrastructure folks, that's scary because traditionally, I don't know how to code, right? Just being honest. A lot of developers, they don't necessarily know what the difference between Kerberos and NTLM are. And they shouldn't have to. They're developers. They're going to have some API that just gives them authentication. This gives me a way where through Azure Policy, which you can see how they're kind of linked on the right-hand side, I can not only make sure their GitHub repos are secure, that they don't have plain text passwords in there. And as an infrastructure guy, I don't even have to know what GitHub is. I just know that Microsoft has deployed policies to integrate it with my security tools. These yellow boxes are what would be their subscriptions. My developer can now be an owner of the subscription. So they can use Key Vault. They can now start moving towards DevOps, where they own the entire stack, and I can start moving towards infrastructure as code, where I become more agile. But each side can move at their own pace and eventually meet in the middle. I think sometimes we don't communicate that well. We say, hey, you need to learn infrastructure as code. But me as an infrastructure guy going, I'm doing data center migrations. I still have to maintain my on-premises day job, and I have to learn how to code, and I have to learn Azure, and I have to learn the 5,000 different products in Azure and how to code. So you can see where that kind of falls apart in real world. So this helps.
So what if, it seems like there are a whole lot of pieces here, and are the majority of these like let's say I've got let's say the first few apps I'm going to take to the cloud are some, let's call them like internal line of business things, right? We're trying it out. We're thinking we're going to move. We know we need to move. We just don't know where to start. So we pick some smaller line of business things with maybe a whole lot without a whole lot of dependencies, a couple databases, whatever.
Okay.
So, how much of this really needs to be in place for us to start with our first few steps into migration? I mean, it's because it seems like a whole lot, and then beyond that, does this account for all types of different resources, paths, and even some of the service-based ones, or is this still pretty infrastructure-focused, infrastructure-heavy to replicate your data center?
So excellent questions. You don't need to deploy all of this. When we do the deployment, you'll see there are questions that you'll ask. And ideally, if you're engaged with us, we'll go through a workshop with you, and it's about 5 days where we ask a bunch of decision tree questions. So based on what your business wants to deploy, let's say I'm a Splunk shop, and so I give 2 flying leaps about Azure Sentinel. I don't really care about Azure Monitor. I just want all my logs in Splunk. Cool. Mm-hmm. We won't deploy. When we go through, you'll see some radial buttons. We just don't deploy log analytics, and we don't configure that. And because it's JSON based, it's not item potent, which means it's not stagnant. So if I tomorrow change my mind and say, I actually want log analytics, I redeploy the template, I enable log analytics bits, and it's just going to bolt it on, but not necessarily cause a ruckus with what's already been deployed. So in your analogy, JP, we would at least need some basic information. Do you already have Azure Active Directory? Yes or no?
Hopefully.
And if you're a business, you're probably going to have an enterprise enrollment already. Hopefully nobody is using pay-as-you-go for Azure, because even if you're only spending $100 a month, get an enterprise agreement. The extra paperwork is worth the discounts you're going to get. So we're going to want to know how your enterprise enrollment is set up, right? That's also part of the story that I think sometimes we get lax on. We don't secure that properly, and we don't explain in layman's terms. The team that usually is involved in that tends to be the infrastructure team, tends to be the identity team, actually, because Azure AD tends to be the first thing spun up. So they need to know how to set that up and protect it, while also giving their business units the flexibility and freedom to do whatever they want.
Right.
So we would deploy just enough to give that business unit a subscription that they can be owner of, with whatever policies, whatever compliance controls that we need to enforce. Let's say we're a financial, and Microsoft has a PCI compliant template. Tag that on to the management group, and it will inherit down to any subscriptions in there. So now I know with a level of confidence the environment's being audited. Azure will give me alerts if they do anything that's not compliant with the PCI requirements from a technical implementation. But I also want to highlight it's important to remember there are operational sides of all of these compliance paths out there. So we do have that linked where you can say, okay, if PCI requires you to ensure there are no guest accounts that have not logged in for 60 days, that's going to be an operational thing. And we'll show you how you can do that in Azure. But don't forget, there's a technology solution to compliance as well as a operational side. But then it has different levels of security. If you want to be NSET 2017, ISO, SOC 1, 2, and just attach whatever makes sense for your business. And then you just give the subscription over to developers and say, go ham. If they say we need hybrid networking, cool. If we want to align with this design, we create our networking subscription. And I don't know how to make this scroll down in this little picture here, so I'm going to zoom back out. And you would create in this example, we call it connectivity. We tend to see our customers create like a shared subscription or a centralized subscription for all the traditional infrastructure. But here, if JP's databases need access to on-premises resources, we'll go ahead, we'll create our connectivity model, set it up. VNet peer works across subscriptions, so great. Now JP can turn on private endpoints, have a private IP address, accessible from on-premises, and know that my developers don't have to know anything about networking. I told my networking team, build out hybrid networking. When it was done, we just connected it. And again, this peering connection can be managed through Azure policies. So any new virtual network that JP spins up, if I so desire as a business, will automatically connect to my hub. My hub is going to have all my security controls on it. So now I know JP doesn't have to worry about NSGs. Ideally, we want him to use them, but if he forgets, no harm, no foul. It's going to go through our central hub, which will have NSGs, which will have security, which will have auditing. So now JP doesn't have to worry about networking. He just has to worry about, hey, I just need to spin up my databases and have a good time.
So essentially then, it's essentially a way for you call it IT ops or management or whatever. It's essentially a way for them to paint a developer into a box. The developer can do whatever they want in that box because the box has been made to limit them to whatever it is that is acceptable via policy, right?
Absolutely. Yep. And so rather than micromanaging each subscription, and this is, I mean, even with some really large Fortune 250 companies I work with, they're still doing this today. When a new application needs a subscription, and they need a subscription because there are still technologies, Key Vault's one of them, where you have to be owner of a subscription to use some of those features. So they'll give the business unit their own subscription, but then they'll spend literally hours onboarding by attaching all the appropriate policies, making sure the monitoring is the right spot, the logging is the right spot, rather than taking advantage of Azure Policy, where I do that at a macro level, and it just inherits and trickles out. It's like GPOs. This is essentially like GPOs if you're familiar with the traditional Active Directory model.
Yeah. So it's GPOs for your Azure resources, and
exactly,
and the configuration that goes into them, and then. But what's neat is that for every subsequent resource that I deploy, so I went and deployed, like you said, a net new virtual network, which I wouldn't do, but I went and deployed a new app service or a new set of functions or whatever. Any policy, any GPOs that you had linked to my subscription would essentially, it would get applied retroactively, right?
Yep.
So it's not only everything that exists now, it's everything that will exist in the future.
Exactly, and there's two parts to that. You can do it as an enforce, which is, hey, an example, no public IPs is a common one I see enforced. So if you accidentally try to deploy your app service environment with a public IP, it'll tell you, hey, a policy, it'll give you the policy name, you'll get an error. Fortunately, the error doesn't happen until after you hit. The error is not evaluated at validation,
right,
which I wish it did. It will happen at deploy. Or you can do it in audit mode, which is, hey, let the developer do whatever they want, but should they violate a policy, let us know, because there might be time. And that's just a personality of your company. If you want to trust your developers but monitor them, or if you want to enforce behaviors because you are nervous about things like data exfiltration. And you can mix and match. In the landing zones, you'll notice we had different management groups, and those management groups can be organized by security model. So if I have a management group where all my high secure, top secret goes here, and it's going to have super aggressive policies, great. And then maybe I have a sandbox where I just, hey, you know what, devs, do whatever you want, but that sandbox will have data protection on it so that if I see any non-anonymized data in there, I'm going to immediately lock it down. So you can mix and match as you like.
So how easy is it? So let's say I've got, say we've got 24 subscriptions or whatever, right? How easy is it to start with a base policy and then apply extra? I've got, we'll just pick a number. I've got a 2,000 line blob of JSON or whatever that's policy, right? And then I want to take all of that as a baseline, and then I just want to add 5 new things, 5 new controls for a certain group. Do we get any sort of inheritance between these policies? Everybody wants to see the JSON, by the way.
Yeah. So
show me the code.
I will say that one of my favorite things about open source and being an infrastructure guy, the whole concept of open source and community didn't really apply to me. An application is an application. An OS was an OS. Whether it was Linux or Windows, I only got an ISO and I installed it. But now with the cloud and stuff, I'm learning the beauty of the community where things like Azure Sentinel has a bunch of policies where you can see what communities have contributed. And we have one for Azure Policy as well. GitHub Azure Policy. I was hoping it would pop up in my auto. Oh, there it is. So these are where you can pull samples from the community, contribute as well. To built-in policies are ones that have already been brought into the Azure portal, which I'll show you that. And so you can kind of see these policy definitions, and you can they're organized by service. And so then you can drill down and see the JSON. So these are the built-in ones that are also available in the portal, so I'll show you that. And then we have some that are community-driven, because there are people that are way smarter than me out there. And so if you go through, is it under samples or patterns? I think samples are where community ones go. And so then you can see where some application gateway SKUs. Most of them will have a deploy to Azure button that will, because these are on GitHub, because it is just JSON, Azure just ingests the JSON as a custom template deployment, and away you go. But then to do this, I'm going to do this on the fly and say, hey, you know what? I just started a new company. I know nothing about this, but I'm going to just trust that Microsoft's not leading me astray and click the deploy to Azure button. I'm going to see what happens.
What could possibly go wrong, right?
What could possibly go wrong?
Yeah.
So it's the production subscription, obviously.
Starting my custom thing for region, I'm going to choose South Central US. And I've actually not done this in my subscription. I've done this in customers' subscriptions, but we usually go through a workshop, so we customize it a bit, because this will have parameters and ask you for things like naming standards, which you can customize. Oh, and I wanted to highlight the difference between this and Cloud Adoption Framework. The key difference, this is prescriptive. So if you don't know an answer to a Cloud Adoption Framework design decision, this will give you our best practice based on our experience.
Oh, nice.
And on the website, if you go under, on the left-hand side here, if you go under, and here's your start small, was it under, where is critical design areas? Does it start here? Yeah, so under start with enterprise scale, critical design areas, this shows you the decision trees we made. So if you're curious, like, hey, how did Microsoft come up with this design choice? It breaks it down into each layer of, hey, these are the design considerations. So if you're curious, if you want to know what guided our decision, you can absolutely read it. If you go to identity and access management. The other thing is...
And again, I'm going to probably bang the same drum here, but do you feel that the use of enterprise or the large scale, or there are some really scary words over there. I wonder if that will turn away smaller companies that are looking at that like, damn, I'm not the size of Coca-Cola or Walmart. Do I really need this one?
You know, that's a fair point, Mr. C, and possibly. The one thing I would say, if there are any small businesses around, reach out to us. Right. Ask for a cloud solution architect. We are happy to invest ourselves into your success. So don't worry about hourly rates. You don't have to go that direction if you don't want to. If you are willing to put your hands on the keyboard and put in the sweat, we're willing to invest the intellectual capital, the folks like Mr. C, JP, and I, to helping you. So you make a fair point, Mr. C. The name and the brand is pretty stuck right now, so I don't think that's going to change for the next bit. But we've committed to this code for the next 2 years. We're actually adding workloads. So if you are an enterprise, SAP on Azure is one that's being added in as a critical design area. So that will be code that you can build out an SAP landing zone. I'm working on the Windows Virtual Desktop landing zone, and we have an AKS specific landing zone because AKS has some unique things with networking and such. That's also being rolled out. But we're going to be onboarding more services.
Okay.
But so I completely agree with you. And I would say, hey, if you're a small business, reach out to us. Reach out to any of us on the stream. Well, we'll happily give you our business cards. We will help. We want you to be successful.
So I have a question then. So we're building out these landing zones, right? And it's got all of this configuration and stuff, right? So that I'm monitoring and all my logs are going to the right place and my log levels are set correctly and my network configs are consistent and our rules are consistent on firewall rules and all that sort of stuff, right? Why? I guess it feels like a whole lot. And it feels like, why isn't this just there anyway?
So I agree that it feels like a whole lot, and I would counter argue you're right, but it has to be. The cloud is a great playground for developers. I love it. I fully acknowledge that. I want to see the next Uber. I want to see the next Uber Eats and such. But it's also, we have to remember, a very exposed platform that Russia has access to, North Korea, and again, I'm just picking countries that are notoriously known for doing state actor attacks. And the internet is still the Wild West. I don't care what anyone tells you. And the cloud is on the internet. That's agnostic of Azure, agnostic of AWS. So not acknowledging that we should put in the work to make it safe for developers would be, in my mind, a mistake that falls on the security and infrastructure teams of your business.
I'm just wondering.
It is our job to make it safe and agile.
Well, yeah, and like someone said, that obviously lots of different industries have different, lots of different compliance requirements and regulatory requirements, but it feels like there's a whole collection of base stuff here that would make sense to be a sensible default. It's a checkbox, right? You uncheck it if you know what you're doing. But it feels like it'd be cool to have something. Feels like it'd be cool to have some component of this be part of a, almost like a gallery app, right? Or almost like a thing in the marketplace of deploy a Kubernetes enterprise landing zone And
it's funny you mentioned that. I've been bugging Mr. Canty to do exactly that with our Epic Enterprise Landing Zone, because I just recently learned how that all works.
Yeah.
But exactly that, make it. So yes, that is the feedback I've been giving up to the team. And now that I'm on the team as part of WBD, and I'm actually going to inherit networking too, sadly, I agree. I fully agree. It's striking that balance of speed to market, because anything that's going to go in the gallery has got to go through our internal CELA process versus GitHub, which is just, hey, throw it up there and see what sticks.
Yeah.
I'm sure that will come into play, but I fully agree with you. It should be a gallery item that helps. I think some of the advantages to this design is that by having it in GitHub, I can look at it first and do code review, because even though I never do, that's the right answer. You should look at the JSON before you deploy it. You shouldn't be like me and just blindly trust and click. But when you do it in a marketplace item, it becomes more cumbersome to look at the JSON. And if there are prereqs and such, that becomes a little trickier in the marketplace. But I do agree, in theory, JP. And you can help me beat up Mr. Canty to see about making that happen.
I just think like if you think about security defaults in Azure AD, it handles sort of sensible defaults. Of course, you can change and override everything, but if you're new, especially. Softballs, they are kind of soft, to be quite honest. The heat will come in a little bit. Don't worry about that. I mean, it's normal. It's a regular day. But yeah, I think a set of sensible defaults so that someone can start working immediately, but have some confidence that they won't be on the news tomorrow, or that they will leave their Elasticsearch instance on the internet because of course that seems to be the most popular thing people like to leave on the internet, or Elastic and MongoDB databases. So,
oh no. Can I give you some real talk there, JP? We have those services. We have those defaults. They're not free, so we can't turn them on out of the box. Azure Security
money.
Will actually do and give you those defaults.
Yeah.
But that's a paid service.
Yeah, that's true. Well,
so now the cool thing is Azure Security Center works across cloud. So I have a customer that Azure Security Center detected an open Elasticsearch, Logstash, an open Logstash that would let anybody do an unauthenticated query against their Logstash database to pull out anything they wanted to. Security Center found it in AWS, so they felt that alone was worth their year-long investment. But Security Center is not free, so.
I think
we do have those.
I think we need to the Azure AD team needs to talk to the Azure team and say, well, we made stuff like MFA free.
Mm-hmm. True. I could also then say, but Sentinel is free for all of the Azure AD logs as well, and Azure Activity Logs.
So what are we waiting? Come on, what are we waiting on? Come on, Azure, let's go.
Let's do this. Right on the air.
So
let's commit.
You can see it's just going to ask me a bunch of questions, and I'm just going to take the defaults. In general. If you don't know what the right answer is, take the defaults. And we'll click the land, because you can always change these later. So we can always update the deployment. We can always fine tune this later. And if you go through this with us, we'll actually create a custom parameters file for you. So you don't go through this wizard. We would set up your naming standard, how do you want to enforce it, your business units, all those other shenanigans. This is just, I literally clicked in the GitHub, deploy to Azure, because I honestly have no idea where to start. So I am that small business owner.
So how much?
Landing zone subscription, I have at least one subscription deployed, so I'm just going to use the same subscription over and over again. Click next, and why did it fail? Let's see here. The client does not have the operator to. Did I mess up my subscription permissions?
Uh-oh.
I'm an account admin. Am I not an owner of this anymore? I was messing around with management groups last night, so I might have broken my stuff. Give me 1 second. No, I'm an owner. I'm definitely an owner.
So what? So are there landing zones for? Or I don't know if a landing zone is probably the right term, but is there a batch of configuration for Azure AD 2?
Yes.
To do things like enforce PIM and that sort of stuff, CA policies, all that kind of stuff.
Well, if we go through and we look at the design considerations of what it covers, Azure AD, JP, we can say, all right, let's see. So we set up RBAC, we set up a key vault. We set up conditional access, we enable MFA, we want to use PIM. Now this is tied to my E5, so I have P2, which is not free from Azure AD and is where all the good security is. So don't you just go heckling Azure, Mr. Azure AD team. That entire P2 license stack should be free and included. But it'll also build out these default roles, a network management group, RBAC, and these are just default roles built out to make sure, to help you if you're a new customer or if you're new to RBAC, know where to start. See it in real life, because seeing is believing. Getting your hands dirty sometimes makes it stay.
Yeah.
It's going to set up just in time. It's going to use managed identities when it can. And it's going to not allow you to add users directly to resources. You want those permission scopes to be on either subscriptions or management groups.
Why not resource groups? Just too much to manage?
Because
too granular?
Because we find that we have higher success when we align an application lifecycle to a subscription, or the business unit to the subscription, so then they can self-manage inside, which is not an Azure AD thing. So the identity team ideally should be decoupled from managing permissions inside a business unit. So if JP, if you're the market,
ideally.
That's right. Well,
So we want to kind of encourage that.
How many subscriptions can you have in an enrollment? I'm not.
Oh shoot! I know of one enterprise customer, big box store, that has over 600.
600 subscriptions?
Yeah, but let's take a look.
Why so many?
That's a whole nother thing that gets me fired up at that particular customer.
See, I didn't see that here, but I have a customer that's doing pretty much the same thing, where they have thousands of subscriptions.
Thousands?
Yep. And
are they using them instead of resource groups or something?
No,
I don't know what a resource group is. I'll go with subscription.
No. They're
why thousands?
Because they have thousands and thousands of resources and environments. They're absolutely massive. But
wow.
So the question came up of, well, how many subscriptions can an individual account owner in an EA create? And I could not find the answer anywhere.
Then it's unlimited, right? If it's
I'm sure there is a limit, but I'm sure it's also it's unlimited.
Well, that's per management, but that's a
management.
But that's management group, right? They're worried more about the EA size. So
EA is higher. If you remember, and you go back to our little diagram here, if I can find it.
Well, the EA has an account owner under it, right?
The landing zone contains. So as a developer, this is the box you get, the yellow box. And all the blue stuff is the protection that that landing zone is going to pre-tag. So you just build out your databases, you have a nice day, you have a good time, knowing that you're in this nice safe nest of development goodness. So the enterprise enrollment is up here. It is above the management group in the hierarchy.
No, I know. It's just that was the question, because they're automating both subscription creation and automating a bunch of stuff in the resources. So. And MCM says.
I feel like that name needs. We need to unmask the masked MCMAZ.
I don't want to unmask him or her, but
my name is Wildfires because I live in Arizona. But it's ironic and fortuitous that it also aligns with I'm now the Azure Wildfire. I'm going to take that myself.
Well,
that's my.
Well, looks like somebody's taken it at least once, because you're one.
Why? Oh yeah, I had it for a while, and then I lost the password to the original Yahoo account, so I couldn't remember how to unlock it. I also lost my MySpace account, so I had to add the number one again. What is this doing that it doesn't like? I don't think it likes that this subscription is already in. All right, so let's try this again. So I'm going to move. I'll show you how to move a subscription between management groups. I was organizing this last night, playing with it to see how robust this code would be, and I think. So this is, you always have a root. Don't do anything in the root. Always create your first level here, and that kind of aligns with, oh my gosh, that got huge. And that always kind of aligns with our organization architecture. It's just like Active Directory. You don't want a root domain. You always want at least a, 2 section long domain. So I'm going to go in here. Oh no, I do it the root. No, don't want to add a management group. I want to go here and go to details. This is all a lot easier in PowerShell, but I want to, no, I'm in the wrong one. I did want to go to root. Root, go to details. I'm trying to pull my subscription that's in here out from the bottom. So I'm going to just move. It took me a long time to learn that the add subscription button will move a subscription. So that's not very intuitive, but that's the nature of it. If you go to hierarchy settings, you can tune some stuff here, right? Hey, where's the default for new subscriptions? By default, it's not the management group. And I'm going to turn this off because I think that permission might have been what was causing me ruckus. Yeah, so because I don't have group write access is not a default permission you get. So I'm going to turn that off. Let's check our other deployments. All right. And, if you're a money guy, you can do your budgets and cost analysis at the management group layer too. So that's kind of cool. Here, since we're here, I might as well give you the overview. Policies. All those built-in policies and blueprints are in here. So you can see compliance. I don't have any policies attached, so I'm 100% compliant, which is awesome. I don't have anything that needs to be remediated, so I don't have to worry about creating remediation tasks. This will tie into your ticketing system. Assignments is where I can start adding initiatives and policies. And initiatives are like, if we hover over this, it's not going to tell you anymore.
It's like a bundle of policies?
Yes, that would be the best way to describe it from my point of view. So if I assign an initiative, we can look at the built-in ones for Microsoft. And these are the ones that, you're right, it'll be a collection. And you could create your own, but these are just the ones built in. We talked about PCI. Some of these are just, hey, enable Azure Monitor.
Okay.
HIPAA, high trust.
That's cool, though. So there are some that are available that don't require going and downloading policy files from GitHub and whatever. There are some we can just come in and apply, right?
Absolutely.
Oh,
there's even some for just security baselines.
Sure. Okay.
And then these align with the built-in reports that you'll see in Security Center. Did you give it a name? And we'll go next. And then you can look at remediation. I thought I was going to tell you. Because you can do two things. Some of these will have pre-built remediation tasks that we've already deployed as logic apps, like install the log analytics agent if it's missing. And you can enable auto remediation. Or if you have your own and you want to build your own remediation pipeline, you can do that as well.
So does that get installed by the policy?
It gets enabled.
Or get enabled, I guess, by policy. Okay, cool.
So back into policies, if you want to do your own definitions or look at what's built in, you can click here to see what's built in. Here's where you can also see the JSON from the Azure portal.
So what does this one do?
Yeah.
Backup should be enabled. So how does it actually do it? Like if I wanted to write a policy myself, what does it do? What does it say?
Well, let's look. So the properties, so it's JSON format. So here's our syntax, and I'm sure the syntax is out there. Display name, because we want human readable text. This type of policy is built in. Yours might be custom. I honestly don't know what this mode means for indexed.
So where are like the actions or whatever? So we've got our parameters.
Down here, it's going to do an allow. Right now, it's going to say audit if exists, and it's going to look for a JSON value of on the template on the actual object being deployed.
Yeah.
It's going to look if it has this JSON value on its deployment, and it's going to look for it. So it's going to look to see if this value exists. So the policy rule says, hey, if it is a virtual machine, then look to see if this is here.
And either disable or enable it, depending on the policy.
Right.
The effect.
If not, it's simply, I think this one is just auditing it.
So,
if not exist.
So I guess, but those properties exist on the resources even if you don't configure them originally, right?
Correct.
Yeah. So you'd never be in a case where you'd say, flag this to enable, and it says, oh yeah, that property doesn't exist on a thing. So.
Right. It's going to evaluate it, and if it doesn't hit that first match for evaluation, so it's going to look at the metadata here, and it's going to say audit if it doesn't exist. So again, that's just auditing. It's not actually taking action. But there's also a deny or allow. So if it has the value, allow it. That's popular with tags to enforce tagging. Or if it exists, deny it. So if it has a public IP, deny it.
So scroll back up.
And then here, field it's evaluating, some if-then stuff, looking for log analytics. And then it wants to make sure that it has the right log profile.
Go.
That it's logging everything.
Scroll back up to the top. Sorry, I wanted to see something. So we have our masked expert in the chat. So policy type CC. So he or she or they say mode is the resource manager property. So is that like all versus? Index is only evaluate resources that support tags. Which resources don't support tags? That seems interesting.
There are a few. So I know like the Azure Virtual WAN object doesn't, but the virtual hubs, or is that reversed? either virtual WAN object does and the hubs don't, or the hubs do and the virtual WAN top parent level object doesn't.
I see.
Management groups don't support tags, of course, but because you can't really see them anyway.
I see.
All right, so I'm going to try again because I'm kind of determined to get this to work. South Central US, prefix, let's call it AIA.
So this
Next.
So this creates a management group, right? And then it does.
And then it's going to turn on and deploy all this kind of stuff. So this is basically just configuring monitoring for me, to be honest.
Yeah. This is.
I'm going to leave this blank and see what happens there.
Those are like the old OMS log analytics, like solution packages or whatever, right?
You are exactly right.
Yeah.
So now this is going to, these are the policies that are going to be turned on by default.
So let's see. So ensure VMs are monitored. Protect or prevent inbound RDP. And so like a policy like prevent inbound RDP, does that let me do it and then remediate it quickly? Or does that fail on the deployment? Or does that block me when I'm configuring it?
This one, so I'd have to look at this policy to know. I'd have to actually look in the JSON of the code to know. I'm guessing by the verbiage, though, it's not going to allow 3389 with an any rule on the NSG.
Okay, so it's
that's
so it depends. So there are different settings, and I assume certain settings can be prevented, and other settings probably can only be remediated.
Correct.
Yeah. Okay.
Storage counts, yada yada. So let's see if this will review and create. Why? What did I do last night to mess up my permissions? And it says, with the object does not have authorization to perform, or the scope is invalid. This is the problem I was having yesterday, JP, when I had a trailing space. But I'm not sure what. So if we go to raw error, let's see. Authorization failed. But then yesterday it just started working, and so please refresh your if this was recently granted. Please refresh your credentials. Sure.
Sign out,
I'll play
sign back
JP's
in.
game.
Sign out, sign back in.
Seriously?
Yeah.
All right.
You might.
I trust you, JP.
There could be something with your there could be something on your token that needs to.
I do have challenges on my token because it inherits all of the local ones, which is why I did this in private browsing. Like when I launched PowerShell, I end up with tokens across all my customers, across all my
it's a mess.
and it's kind of
yeah, I know that feeling.
Let's use another account. And don't let me forget to show you how to get this tied to your MD5, because as an Azure AD guy, you get P2 and you can do all kinds of fun stuff on your stream.
Oh, we have P2. We definitely have P2. I've been I had to do a bunch of PIM work last week, which was actually pretty neat. Automating PIM through so you can build like your own front end for doing stuff is pretty cool.
Well, you should start contributing to this so that when people deploy it, they get all that good juiciness with it. So I'm going to go to South Central US, and maybe I need to edit the template. Sure, let's see what's actually in here.
Deja vu. And this is when you got off of GitHub, right?
Yes.
Okay.
So I'm just using it raw. So the GitHub has different versions. They have smaller versions as well and samples and stuff. So that looks fine. That looks fine. I suspect there's something in here I need to change. So you can see what it's gonna do that for me. It's gonna deploy a whole bunch of subscriptions. I wonder if it's because I don't have the ability to create new subscriptions, if that's specifically what's failing. Don't know. Let's find out. I don't see anything in here that leaps out at me. So we'll discard that. If we look at parameters, what's in here? So this is all the stuff that the GUI is asking me about. All right, so nothing too exciting there.
It feels like a resource group template for an entire, like, essentially for a management group, for like a company.
Yeah,
right?
I would say that's accurate. So if I leave this blank, well, let's see. Let's read the manual. Enterprise requires access to the root. I don't think I have elevated myself to get access to the root. Let's see. Why would you need access? So give me access. How do I get access? Sign into the Azure portal. Azure admin. If you're privileged, open properties.
Oh yeah, you have to do that. If you haven't already, aad.portal.azure.com will take you there.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure it will, but 4
extra characters. Just look how many you've typed. It's called Azure Active Directory.
If only,
it has a full name.
Branding, marketing.
Azure should just be assigned. It should just be implied on every search. All right. So where was I supposed to go again? Go to users.
No. Go to properties on the directory. And at the bottom of this screen, you'll have that, which you already are, so that's good.
All right.
Okay.
I don't have to worry about any of those shenanigans. All right, so I did this. Is there anything else I need to do?
I don't think so. Are you using PIM at all?
I am not yet.
Okay.
And then it says basically, so I do have user administrator access at the root. I already double checked that. When I went management groups, and I went details. So this is the root management group, and if I go to access control IAM, and I say check my access, I'm pretty sure I had owner to it. I do. So I can't get any better than that, right? Is there a permission I need to add that I don't have that I'm missing?
What is that on? A management group? Yeah, I don't think you can be more than the owner of a management group.
That's what I thought too. Do I need to add myself as a co-admin?
No, because that's for ASM. That's for the old service management stuff.
That's what I thought. Just trying to play the game. I actually might after this is done because I am determined. And unfortunately, I do have a customer that I will be doing some Windows Virtual Desktop adventures with. Hey, JP, on a side note, I have several customers I could probably get to engage on this channel during one of their real-life interactions and deployment models. If you think that would be interesting, let me know, because and I can line that up.
Absolutely.
Okay. So this one is giving me fits. So I don't know what the heck. I know I have authorization, but whatever. So let's try a different GitHub deployment. I will try one of the enterprise scale in a box tutorial. So again, if you're like me and you're not very good at this, you can use this tutorial. This helps you set up your tenant. This actually even has a tutorial for setting this up in a DevOps pipeline for you, so that as we make code changes or you make code changes, you can have it continuously integrating and rolling out. And as someone who knows absolutely nothing about DevOps until he did his first DevOps open hack, I found that terribly useful. So I'm going to click deploy my tenant.
I thought you were going to say terribly scary, but useful is good as well.
Well, I'm going to click this button and see if it works. So this is going to deploy it with Azure Virtual WAN. Oh, no, that's just a picture. I got baited. All right, hold on. Is it that one? Got baited again. These pictures shouldn't be clickable. Where is... I'm looking for that deploy to Azure button. It's not there. All right. So let's go to Purex. I did not do any of this. Fair enough. Let's go back here and let's go to the wingtip. We do have these reference implementations. So one is for Brownfield that says you already have some stuff deployed. It'll show you this one just does these management, connectivity, identity, and landing. So that kind of helps you get it a little bit smaller. And then it shows you the groups it makes. So you can look at these as well. This one is a lot less. And then what was, is it AdventureWorks? It's the smaller one. This one is the same, but this one's using a traditional networking model instead of virtual WAN. And what is then Wingtip Toys? And Wingtip Toys just does two. So let's do Wingtip Toys and see if we get this one to work. And if not, I will troubleshoot this and come back. But I mean, I'm a big fan of this. I think this is long overdue for helping customers find answers to questions about a technology they might not know as much about as they want. So this deployment looks pretty much the same. Yeah, I don't know. I'm gonna have to figure this out and
wait, go back one. What was the landing zone subscription? Do you need to choose one?
Well, it says optional, but we can choose one. It says permissions, right? I mean, that clearly says I don't have authorization, but I don't know what that error is. And I might actually have to just do it from PowerShell because the web browser is still grabbing a different token or something, I guess. I don't know. Or JP, if you have time this afternoon or this evening, you want to geek out and work through this with me, I'd love to do it, because I honestly, I don't know why it says, I thought I have all the authorization I need. So I don't know what the heck is going on there.
Providers, resources, deployments, no marketplace. Yeah, like that seems pretty. I mean, that's just like I think that's what used to be called custom deployment, is no marketplace. So
right.
And what is this?
Yeah, I mean, it says
and it won't.
Deployment template.
It's not even letting you validate it. Like it's not even getting you to the point of trying to do it. That's what's kind of strange about it. This isn't. Is this like new or fun stuff?
I have no idea, but we can investigate it together if you like.
Yeah, let's go look. So this isn't new. This isn't net new functionality,
See,
right?
you can do it in your subscription, JP.
Oh, God almighty. Okay, hang on.
I mean, seriously. So since I got a drop, give it a quick shot. You know, I want to see if you get it real quick in the next 3 minutes. Just go through the GitHub real quick and see if you do a deploy and see if you at least get to the validation phase. You know.
All right. Hang on.
Now, for you, I would totally expect it to fail because you don't have access to Azure AD, MSIT. But on your MSDN, it should work. But this is all tied to my Office 365. Is the default directory. So.
All right. Let me try with mine. Send me a link. You got a link?
Oh, I do have a link. It's
Oh, somebody's saying, did you turn off your marketplace by any chance?
What was that?
Did you turn off your marketplace?
Not intentionally. And someone asked if it's an enterprise agreement, and mine is not. Mine is a pay-as-you-go sponsored subscription. Those might come into play. And I do know I saw an email that flew around internally about, hey, if you want to demo this internally, you might have some more steps. But
all right.
I'm not convinced that's required. I'm calling it shenanigans.
Which one? The wingtip one?
No, just go to the very first page, and there's a deploy at the very bottom.
The very first
So
page.
go to the root of the GitHub.
Yeah, okay.
Enterprise scale, right?
Oh, quick start, deploy to Azure.
You're still seeing mine. Share your. I still see my screen up there.
Oh.
Do you want to share yours?
That's probably a good idea, huh? Yep, hang on a sec. Let me get sort of switched over between the two. My screen, no more teams.
But see that optional stuff there with the infrastructure as code? That's where us infrastructure guys can really start to shine. So just click that top one.
Here, I'll share my screen so you can see it. So you can see what I'm doing.
Yep. So just go to the one towards the top, the quick start enterprise-scale.
Okay, this one, deploy to Azure. All right.
Yep. I just want to see if you get past validation real quick.
All right. East, because that's where I live. Although, should I do South Central? Is it a South Central problem?
Oh, South Central is just lowest latency to me in Arizona, so
okay.
It doesn't matter. I don't think. The prefix has to be less than 5 characters.
Okay.
Richard breaks the internet. It can be
Oh, see, I knew it. I knew it was coming.
Okay, so log analytics, yeah. Management subscription. I will use this one because I don't think there's anything in it. Blah, blah, blah. Okay, all these different solutions. What?
How many MSDNs do you have? You're an animal.
How?
All right.
Yeah, he's got insane number of subscriptions.
Now, I have one.
I thought I was a baller with 2. One for my MCT and one for my...
Okay, well, now hang on. I have one subscription. That's got production services running in it. Is this going to break anything?
No. I just want to see you get to validation.
Okay,
you don't have to deploy. And this will not break anything.
Nope, failed for me too.
Oh, there you go.
Oh, but hold on.
This.
Actually, you know what it is? I do have PIM turned on. I do have PIM, so my user right now is kind of not a user at all.
Oh.
We lose Rich. Oh no, he's still there. Okay.
Oh, I'm here.
Okay. Let me go. I don't know what's happened here. I guess I refresh here.
Talking expression somewhere? Oh.
I don't know. Azure Portal drama. I'll come over here. And I'll go elevate myself with my other account. So.
Is that not what we're testing the other day, Pim?
Yeah. So
Yes.
I'm not one now, but I will be in just a minute. I'm not a GA now, but I will be in a minute. Put this into the audit logs forever. All right. So I'll elevate with PIM. Meanwhile, it's GitHub, enterprise scale. We'll let this activation only takes a minute or so, and we'll be good. And then we'll do deploy to Azure here in just a minute. All right.
And it might be, someone commented about the enterprise agreement might be required. That might be the case because I don't have an EA.
Oh, really? You would need? Well, I guess that's.
See, that becomes an issue now because not every company will have an EA with us.
No, but that coincidentally, totally unprompted, goes back to my earlier statement of no matter what size you are, sign an EA if you plan on using Azure for anything, even if it's $100 a month. It's worth it.
Well, so does this also mean that?
But I know we can deploy this internally. I think there's probably just a line in the JSON we have to adjust to make it work without an EA.
Right.
Yeah. Well, that's true because and some of these create subscriptions, right? Can they do that? I mean, can you do that via policy?
They can do that, but this out of the box won't. With the one you clicked, it will use one subscription for everything. Okay. And then it just sets up the code to allow you to create more subscriptions.
All right, well, let's try it quickly and see if it works. Let's try it quickly and see if it works, he said.
Hurry up, I want to see how far you get before I got to go jump over. I can only stall so long.
Well, surely whatever meeting you have to go to can't be better than this one.
Mm-hmm.
They're just different. I love my customers.
You can tell them we said that. Nope, still doesn't work. Yeah, no, it's kind of weird. It's pretty weird. I don't know why it didn't work.
Tonight, JP, and figure it out. And I'll do some research too, if you don't mind. Is that cool?
Yeah, for sure. Let's do it.
All right. Well, I'm gonna let you get back to your regularly scheduled program. But again, for any small businesses folks out there, don't be shy. Reach out to us, regardless of an EA or not. Let us help you be successful and give you the opportunity to make fun of how dapper Christos always is and how intelligent JP always is.
Yeah, you put us together, we're almost a full human.
Yes, exactly.
Thanks for that.
Gentlemen, always a pleasure. Have a good day.
Man. See ya.
Yeah, you too. Thank you.
Oh, goodness. Well, I mean, it's never a dull moment, I suppose. So.
No. So it's just the two of us and our audience.
Yeah. So what kind of community news did we have this week? I mean, obviously it's Ignite, so there have been a bunch of new announcements.
I was planning on covering Ignite in the book of news. So for people that are fairly new to your first-party events, we always publish a book of news that you can go and look at, and it has all the announcements across all the products. So you might just be a developer looking at .NET announcements.